This is Port St. Lucie. In 2020 alone, 50,000 people moved here, making it the sixth largest city in Florida overnight. St. Johns County, tucked between Jacksonville and St. Augustine, grew 43.9% in a single decade. Meanwhile, Miami-Dade's single-family residential land became so depleted that by 2024, developers began converting golf courses and parking lots into housing zones just to find buildable ground. This might have slowed the growth, but it didn't stop. It just moved north, filling in the gaps between cities that were never meant to be filled. And today in those gaps, you can watch a new kind of American city coming together in real time. This city doesn't have a mayor or a city hall. It doesn't appear on any single map as one place. But from Miami to Jacksonville, what is emerging is something the United States has never quite produced before, a continuous linear megacity stretching the length of a small country. So, what is actually making this happen? And what kind of city does 350 miles of Atlantic coastline become when the distance closes? No single force has done more to make the megacity structurally possible than a private railroad that most Americans have never heard of. Brightline is the first privately operated intercity passenger railroad in the United States in over a century. And as of 2026, it has quietly become something that millions of people now depend on to get through their day. The system runs 18 daily round trips in South Florida, with trains every 30 minutes during peak hours. By connecting Miami Central to Orlando International Airport, Brightline has made the distance between cities feel less like a gamble. Interstate 95 connects every city on the Atlantic seaboard, but the same drive can take 40 minutes or 2 hours, depending on the day. That unpredictability has always been a soft ceiling on how far apart two places can be while still functioning as parts of the same city. Rail removes that ceiling. 30 minutes means 30 minutes, which is why developers are building 50-story mixed-use towers adjacent to Brightline platforms in Miami and West Palm Beach, and treating rail access as the primary amenity rather than an afterthought. The economic concept underlying all of this is what planners are calling the adjacency premium. When travel time between cities becomes predictable, the distance between them stops mattering as much. A firm in Miami can recruit from West Palm Beach without asking anyone to uproot their life. The entire 350-mile corridor can then function like one giant job market, which creates an immediate and uncomfortable question. If the rail spine is connecting the existing cities, what is? For most of the 20th century, the physical separation between Florida's Atlantic metros was not just distance. It was land, citrus groves, wetland edges, agricultural tracts, and low-density rural fringe that created a visual and psychological break between one city and the next. You left Miami and drove through something that felt genuinely rural before the next skyline showed up. That experience is being legislated out of existence. Senate Bill 686 and House Bill 691 are two pieces of Florida legislation that have received almost no national coverage but are set to rewrite the development map of the Atlantic seaboard. Together, they would allow agricultural landowners to bypass the comprehensive plan amendments that previously governed conversion of farmland to urban uses, provided the parcel sits adjacent to an existing area of urban development. The procedural mechanism has one detail that deserves attention. If a local government fails to approve or deny an enclave certification within 90 days, the parcel is automatically certified for development. The result, on the Treasure Coast specifically, is that large tracts of former citrus groves are being repositioned as warehousing and last-mile logistics infrastructure, serving a regional population of 23 million people. The region was named one of the top 10 emerging industrial markets in the United States, driven by aerospace manufacturing and advanced production facilities, occupying land that grew oranges a decade ago. These physical gaps were the only thing that made these cities feel like separate places. As they disappear, you can no longer tell where one city ends and the next begins. Fort Pierce starts to feel continuous with Port St. Lucie. The Treasure Coast starts to feel continuous with Palm Beach County. The Space Coast's southern edge starts to feel continuous with the Treasure Coast's northern one. The 350-mile megacity isn't being built by any single developer or government. It is being assembled by the aggregate of thousands of individual conversion decisions, each one local and logical in isolation, collectively producing something none of the individual decision makers necessarily intended. And the people moving into this emerging corridor are not arriving randomly. The migration pattern researchers are tracking into Florida's Atlantic seaboard has an informal name, ATL to Miami, shorthand for the Atlanta to Miami corridor, but it actually describes something much bigger. People are leaving the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic in sustained numbers, and they are not coming back. The reason is simple: 58% of US private sector employees can now work remotely. The old rule that you had to live near your office no longer applies to a huge portion of the professional workforce. And once that rule broke, Florida's lower taxes, cheaper cost of living relative to New York or Boston, and 300 days of sunshine started looking less like a vacation and more like a permanent option. The scale of what that shift is producing is genuinely hard to picture. Take the Boston to Washington corridor that averages roughly 946 people per square mile. Miami-Dade and Broward counties are already above 1,300 people per square mile. Florida's coastline, in other words, is denser in places than large swaths of the region Americans have always considered the most densely settled in the country. The difference is that the Northeast built up over 3 centuries. Generations of infrastructure investment, roads, pipes, rail lines, water systems grew alongside the population. Florida's Atlantic seaboard is trying to absorb comparable density in a matter of decades with infrastructure that was never designed for it. New residents arrive faster than water mains get upgraded. New neighborhoods go up faster than drainage systems get redesigned. And underneath all of that new construction, the ground itself is quietly becoming a problem in a way that most of the people moving there don't know about yet. Florida's Atlantic coast sits on porous limestone just a few feet above sea level. Rain falls, and instead of running off the surface the way it does in most cities, it pushes straight down through the rock. For most of the megacity's history, that was fine. The water table stayed low enough that the drainage systems worked. That balance is now shifting. A sea level rise of just 3 to 9 inches, well within what scientists project for the coming decades, could wipe out 70% of the drainage capacity of the flood control structures that currently keep Southeast Florida dry. The reason is straightforward. Gravity drainage works because water flows downhill. The drainage pipes under Florida's cities rely on there being somewhere lower for the water to go. As sea levels rise and the water table creeps up, that gap between the pipe and the outlet shrinks. At a certain point, it disappears entirely, and the system stops working. This is already happening. In parts of Miami, streets flood on sunny days with no rain in the forecast. Water pushes up through the limestone, through storm drains, through cracks in the pavement, pooling in intersections and parking lots because the ground beneath the city is saturated and has nowhere to send it. Residents call it sunny day flooding, and for some neighborhoods, it happens multiple times a month.
Lights is flooding everywhere. You know, it's like 1 feet high.
The cost of fixing the underlying infrastructure across Southeast Florida is staggering. Drinking water systems alone will require an estimated $26.75 billion over the next 20 years. Wastewater and sewage infrastructure adds another $46.56 billion on top of that. And those figures cover only the southern end of the corridor. The Treasure Coast and Space Coast sit on the same geology with the same vulnerabilities, and the cities least prepared for what is already happening beneath their streets are the ones growing the fastest. Stand at a Brightline platform in West Palm Beach and look up. 50-story towers are going up on 3 sides, with restaurants and offices at street level and apartments above. Now drive 40 miles north into Martin County and you'll find something completely different. Former citrus groves being cleared for warehouse complexes the size of small towns, connected to nothing except a highway on-ramp. Both of these things are building the same megacity. They just have completely different ideas about what it should be. The first model bets on walkable, transit-connected neighborhoods where the train is the point. The second bets on cheap and available land close enough to highway infrastructure to move freight fast. Think about what those two models mean for the people actually living inside them. Someone in a Brightline adjacent tower in West Palm Beach can be at a meeting in Miami in under an hour without sitting in traffic and without any of the unpredictability that makes I-95 a daily gamble. Their building has ground floor coffee shops, a grocery store 2 blocks away, and a train platform that runs on a schedule. Now think about the family that bought a new home in one of the residential developments going up on converted farmland 40 miles from the nearest station. They have more space, almost certainly paid less per square foot, and they have a highway on-ramp nearby. But every errand, every commute, every school run happens in a car. They are, in almost every practical sense, living in a different city, one that just happens to be part of the same mega city on a map. Both are winning right now, and the tension between them determines whether this corridor becomes a genuinely functional urban system or just a very long strip of sprawl with a train running through the middle of it. That distinction matters more than it might seem, because the water problem doesn't care which model wins. It just gets harder and more expensive to solve the more spread out everything becomes. And publicly supported rail like Tri-Rail, which serves the southern end of the corridor, is facing a funding cliff that could drain its operating budget by July 2027. So, while private Brightline is expanding, public transit may be shrinking at the exact same moment. The megacity forming on Florida's Atlantic seaboard is not a forecast or a planning scenario. The consolidation is happening on its own momentum, and it is not waiting for a coordinating authority to decide it should. What remains open are the questions that the momentum itself hasn't answered. Whether the resilience investment catches up to the growth before the water table makes catching up dramatically more expensive. Whether the transit-oriented model concentrates enough of the development to make the corridor's scale an advantage rather than a liability. Whether a linear megacity 350 miles long, governed by dozens of separate municipalities, can coordinate on water infrastructure, transit funding, and drainage without the kind of unified planning that older cities built over generations. The Northeast Corridor took centuries to form, and it still hasn't fully figured out how to function as one thing. Florida's version is being assembled in decades by dozens of separate cities and counties that don't share a budget, a plan, or even an agreement that they're building something together. Some of the decisions that will define what this megacity becomes are being made right now in county commission meetings and legislative sessions. The people making them may not think of themselves as deciding the shape of the next great American city, but that's exactly what they're doing.